Have you ever heard of prospect theory? This theory was coined by Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky in 1979. Kahneman was a psychologist known for his study on behavioral economics, where he received a Nobel Prize for his theory in 2002. Basically, prospect theory explains that when people are faced with decision making, people tend to avoid the risk of losses than the possibility of receiving gain. During situations where risks are present, people tend to view decision making as a choice of prospects or gambles.
Assume you will receive money. Do you prefer A. Receive 1 million now, B. Receive 2 million with a probability of 50%?
1 juta sekarang.
1 juta sekarang. 1 juta sekarang.
Saya lebih pilih yang 1 juta sekarang.
1 juta sekarang.
1 juta deh kayak.
Lebih baik 1 juta sekarang.
1 juta sekarang yang pasti.
Kalau aku sih pilihnya yang dapat 1 juta sekarang ya, soalnya lebih pasti sih.
Dapat 1 juta paling sih.
So, from the people we interviewed, we can conclude that most people would choose a definite result rather than a choice where they are in risk of losing something.
Assume you will lose money. Do you prefer A. Lose 1 million now, or B. Lose 2.5 million with a probability of 50%?
Yang kedua.
2,5 juta. 2,5 juta 50-50.
Ya lebih milih yang opsi pertama sih, 1 juta.
1 juta sekarang.
2,5 juta 50-50.
Kehilangan 2,5 juta tapi 50-50.
Kalau itu untuk kerugian sih saya lebih mending yang kedua.
Lebih kalau menyangkut soal hilang duit paling yang 2,5 juta sih.
2,5 juta ya.
When people are in a situation where they face losses, they are more willing to take risks rather than losing something more.
Loss aversion or risk aversion is one of the determining factors of market efficiency. In stock market efficiency, stocks are most likely to share the same price range as other existing similar stocks. In theory, this makes it impossible for investors to sell stocks with overrated prices or to purchase undervalued ones. Therefore, there should ideally be equilibrium in pricing. But this is not the case in what we often see from a lot of markets. Some investors may prefer to sell on a higher or lower price. This risk-taking behavior can result in market inefficiency. Born in Tel Aviv, Kahneman spoke French as his first language. The family moved to Palestine after Germany occupied France in 1940. Kahneman invited Tversky to speak at his seminar. Kahneman thought Tversky's presentation on how people learn from new information was impressive yet incredibly stupid. The two started collaborating ever since, and they published the work that would win the Nobel Prize. There were two distinct themes: judgment and decision making. Judgment is about estimating or guessing magnitudes and probabilities, whereas decision making is how we choose, especially when there is uncertainty. There are three heuristics that are applied when making judgments under uncertainty: representativeness, availability, and adjustment and anchoring. Representativeness heuristic evaluates the probabilities that an object has any correlation to a certain thing. How similar A is to B is one of the determining factors whether or not A is representative of B. For example, Mr. X is described as introverted, solemn, and meek. And the following set of occupations, farmer, pilot, and salesman, how do people determine the odds that Mr. X works as one of the mentioned occupational roles? Research shows that people are most likely to assess the similarity of Mr. X's personality to the stereotype of the occupations. There are also circumstances where people may evaluate the frequencies of a probability an event would occur in certain situations. This judgment heuristic is called availability. For example, A person may assess the probability a business venture could fail due to numerous occurrences that could happen. Another example is assessing whether a person is at risk of a heart attack by recalling similar situations of another person. In many situations, people would estimate a starting value as the anchor and shifting up or down to reach a seemingly plausible answer. This is called adjustment and anchoring. However, adjustments are typically insufficient since different anchor points could lead to different estimates. Prospect theory does not only apply in economics. This theory can also be applied in various real-life instances, such as Brexit and the presidential election of Trump. Both of these cases presents people who feel that they are in a loss frame. In Trump's case, middle-class voters suffered stagnant wages for decades, and the financial crisis in 2008 erased much of their wealth they received through home equity. Because of this loss aversion, Trump's unpredictability drove people to take more risk by voting for him. This case is similar to Brexit, where people thought they have lost more than they gained. Thus, many voted for Brexit instead. Another example is the Cuban Missile Crisis. During the Cold War, the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 was the moment the United States and the Soviet Union came close to a nuclear conflict. The costs, benefits, and probabilities of success were very much determined by the actions and choices made by Presidents Kennedy and Khrushchev.